Hey everyone, in this video, we're going to cover how to load and travel with material with a telehandler. Check this out. Okay everyone, this is going to be our next series of telehandler videos. I call it advanced, but I really don't. It's still kind of the basic level. But I already went over the basic controls in a previous video, so we'll link to that if you want to see that. As with all my videos, I'm not claiming to be an expert on this. I'm going to kind of show you what I've learned. But I also expect and hope you guys will comment below with your tips and suggestions. I've also already done a pre-op inspection on this machine, so it's always very important. We have a separate video on pre-op inspections as well. Now today we're running a CAT TL943D telehandler. The controls I've noticed on telehandlers, though, they can vary actually. It's not as similar as like excavators, dozers, wheel loaders. So you're definitely going to want to have specific information on your model. Now the material I'm going to go over in this one is more, I think, operational of any telehandler. We're going to talk more how to lift and load things. So that's going to apply to any machine you're going to operate. Now with that said, again, I'm not going to go over all the basic controls. I think I went over this in the initial, but I didn't go over as much. Center of gravity, your weights, all those pieces are probably the most crucial. Telehandlers, it's extremely easy to get in a lot of trouble in a telehandler just because it's really easy to tip one of these just because that center of gravity. There's no other really construction machine that you are manipulating enough where you're pulling a center of gravity so far out away from a machine. So it's really important. Almost all machines are going to have a guide that's going to be right on the dash. Like these are attached to it. So this one's right here in front of me. And then it's got different options based on what attachment you have on. I have forks, which is the most standard, so I pull this up. Now, before you operate a telehandler, it is extremely important. You need to make sure all of your markers are working. So this one you probably can't see, but almost always right above your head, there's a level. So I'll be able to adjust the level on my machine. That's going to be above me because I always want to have the machine level. The next piece is on the side of the boom is my boom angle indicator. That hangs down and I want to make sure that that is working because that's going to tell me my angle on my boom. The final piece is the markers on the boom itself. As it goes out, it's going to have, CAT uses letters, A, B, C, D, etc. Some machines might have numbers, it really varies on that. But those are all those pieces I just mentioned will correlate on this chart here. So this lets me know basically what I'm lifting there. Now, from there, to start out, first things first, driving position for a telehandler. Depending on where that arm is, you see if I pull this back and raise it up. Generally, for the ones that have the telehandler with the arm mounted a little bit higher there, some will actually, you'll actually have them down below you, which is great because you can see over them. Whatever you're going to do, you want to have this up. This one's at about 0 degrees where it's level, and I can see all the way through to my right, and I can see my mirror over there as well. So you want to make sure you're positioned where you can see it. I don't want to drive. So right now I'm just above the ground with my forks. I don't want to drive like this because all I can really see is from my boom over my left. I can't see anything to the right. So you always want to have this up enough. Now with that said, you also don't want to have it up any further because that whole center of gravity, you're going to be raising that up. So we want to be down where it is basically at 0 degree here, and I can see all the way underneath that. And then finally with that, generally if you're loaded, we'll curl the bucket or the forks up a little bit. I always have them up just a little bit as well, just so they're not free floating. If you hang them down too much, they'll actually swing away from the base plate. So you want to have them curled up a little bit. But this is a good driving position. Now we talk about driving, there are 3 different levels of driving, which we show in that original video. You've got your standard 2-wheel steering. Most of those steer from the front. I have seen there are some rear wheel steering machines. Then you've got a 4-wheel steering that'll basically do 360, the front and the back will steer. And then you've got a crab steering, which will basically, both will go in the same direction, which I'll demonstrate. Now, as much as possible, 2-wheel steering, I recommend. If you're in any speed setting over, I would say 3, if you're in 3 or 4 and going faster, you're gonna wanna be in 2-wheel steering just because the more tires that are turning, it's easier to lose control of that. Really, the only time you're using 4-wheel is when you're in a tight area. The other piece that anytime you turn tires on the ground, you are disturbing that surface. So if I'm like right now, I'm on a gravel lot. If I have 4-wheel, I'm just moving twice as many tires in the ground there. So as much as possible, keep it with 2-wheel. And then crab steering is more if you're going to try and get in tight to a building or something like that. Now, I'm going to put the brake on, parking brake off, and I'm in forward gear. Looking where I'm going, and I'm steering here. Now, we're going to be picking up we have a junk car out on this site. So that's what I will be picking up today. Bring that to a stop. Now, I will put it in neutral here just to demonstrate a few things. First of all, I'm going to go to the four-wheel steering here just because I'm in not really a tighter area, but if I need to maneuver here. Now, anytime you're trying to load material on it, on a loader, first thing, the center of gravity. We've got to know those weights. So you got to know what you're picking up, and you want to be able to get that as close to the machine. So right now I've got a 43-foot reach. If you guys don't know, CAT numbers their machines. The first number, the model number, is the weight limit. So it's a 9,000-pound machine, or it'll lift 9,000 pounds. 43 is the reach on it. I do not want to be out 43 feet because that center of gravity is pulling it all forward. So in general, if you can, you're going to drive right up. I'm going to bring this down. So the back and forth on this will bring my forks, my boom down, and then I can angle by pushing up on that. Now, getting a forks level, the easiest way, now I'm right near the ground so I can see it, but the other way I recommend is getting them at eye level. So if I can get these forks right up to eye level, I can basically see if I'm level or not on these. It will hold that level no matter what. So right now I've got the fork set. If I go up or down, it's going to hold that. Now it's much better to set that at eye level because when I'm 20 feet in the air, I am not going to be able to see if I'm level nearly as well. So I set that there or right above the ground. If you're about to pick up, I can see my forks really well. Most likely normally when you go into an item, you're going to have your front tip down just a little bit to make sure you can get underneath it. And I'm going to come forward. Now, knowing what you're picking up, I'm picking up a junk car. Junk cars are going to have most of the weight with the engine up front. As I approach here, I'm going to roll those forks just gently down like this. So I'm right above the ground, and then I'm going to go under this. Once I'm in there, generally I put it on neutral just because the machine won't keep trying to put you in. Depending on what your material you're picking up, sometimes it's good to have your parking brake on. Probably not practical every single time, it just depends. This is about a 3,000-pound car, so I'm going to put those on just to hold me there. Now that I'm in underneath that car, if I just pull back a little bit, I make contact, and then I can see which way it's kind of rolling, and that's where I'm going to pick it up. I'm rolling my forks back. Now the other piece too, I'm going to raise it up just so it's about eye level here. Now anytime you have this bucket material loaded, again knowing your attachment, this one, the forks I have tilt and they also go side to side. So this is where my right thumb on here, if I gently do this, you'll see how I can go one way, and then if I pull down, it'll go that way. That can also be very helpful in loading material or getting into pockets on pallets, things like that. The thing you don't want to do is if you notice if I go, hydraulics are really sensitive, so I see a lot of new operators, if I pull this really hard, you'll see it will rock it really hard. So that's why I can't stress enough, really slow, nice and steady there with this. Now this is a perfect height. I can see all the way underneath my arm here, and I'm good to travel with this. I'll take the parking brake off. Usually now when I'm traveling, let's say I'm backing away from wherever this is, you're gonna wanna roll those forks. You always wanna pitch your material up. So you wanna have that rolled up a little bit just so it's holding it to the deck plate there. But at that point, I'm good with traveling with this. Now, depending on where you're gonna go, this is where knowing what your different levels are. I'm gonna put it in park here. Now you don't ever want to, anytime you're loading or raising any material, you wanna raise it as close to the machine as possible, the base. That's bringing your center of gravity. You don't want to extend this first and then raise up. You want to keep it tight. So with this, if I were to, and this is where you're also gonna wanna, well, if I was in park, I'm in park right now, have your foot in the brake and in neutral, because you'll see it'll go, I can pull it, but you see how slow it's going. If I give it some throttle, that's what's gonna increase the power of the hydraulics. But you'll notice I wanna raise this really as close as I can. This is where you start looking at your chart. So I know and knowing the weights, it's a 3,000 pound car. So I know that my limits here, when I'm all the way in, I don't even have A exposed on letter. So this, I can go to the full capacity. I can go all the way up. This thing, it's up to 8,500 pounds on here, really, 8,500, 9,000 pounds. I've got no concerns being this close. This will allow me to raise this amount. I can go straight up with this. The only piece I'll add to that is you want to be cautious. You'll notice I can pull this car with these telehandlers, the mounts behind me. I can technically raise it over my cab. Now I'm in a protected cab. Yes, I don't want to test it. And a 3,000 car is not something I'm going to test it with. But that is where you want to be cautious. If you have dirt, if you have material in there, I don't usually like raising it up over my cab though. So you'll see I'm kind of in line with it there. This is where now, if I was to start extending it, I would be able to go out with it and raise it. And I'm going to bring it back down. And then you'll notice I'm not adjusting the fork angle at all because I don't want to have to deal with not seeing that up high. And I'll bring it back down here. Now, the key here is if I was to raise this up, understanding that the boom arm, if you try and pick this up by extending your forks, whatever your angle is your arm, that's what's going to hold that. So you'll notice, actually I'm just going to set the car down, it's going to be easier. Now this is where I'm coming down, I'm looking, and I'm going to roll those gently away. And then backing out of it. Now one of the reasons you want to use the drive and this to drive in and having it close, not only are you keeping that weight closer, I'm also driving the forks at a straight level. So I'm going to back up and demonstrate. I've seen operators try and do this by, let's say these are down, like right now I can actually see I'm at a negative angle there. If I were to push these out, I'm going to drive them right into the ground. Because you see, it's going to go down. And it's really tough to manage those two. The same thing, I'm going to bring this back. So let's say I'm trying to pick something up from really up high on a rack or something like that. Ideally, you're going to want to get at about that level and use the drive. If not, I've seen some operators park further back. If I do this right now, the only thing I'm doing is extending that boom. Let's say I'm trying to get into something. Well, unfortunately, not only I'm doing two different motions, I'm going up and out. So it's really tough to manage to get this thing into pockets. Generally, you're going to want to be able to drive because I can go at a straight level. The only way that would work is if you're at 0 degrees where you can extend it. Final piece I want to go over is just knowing your loads. Let's say you're not out, if you're picking up the same material, you should be able to find out what a pallet of bricks or something like that weighs. But if not, I also like to know the limitations of my machine while I can control it. So if I'm going to get at about 0 degrees here, and I'm going to curl those. Okay, I'm in park, neutral. I know this is about 3,000 pounds, I'm just under. I know that my max limit at about 0 degrees here is, I can see a mark on here, and if I follow this one up, let's see, right there, is that D? Yep. So right around D, the D marker is my limit on this. So now I'm in park. If I extend this out, I'm going to give it some throttle. I see A, B, C, and D. And again, you're looking at it from an angle. This is roughly what Caterpillar, what this machine is saying is the limit of this for at 0 degrees. It would be lower if I went up. But if you don't know the weight of the item, you can also back into that number a little bit. So usually they're always, what I've found is that you're going to get at least 2 more ratings on there. It's kind of there's always a margin of error that when they write these that they're going to give you. So, and I know this is just under 3,000 pounds, but I'm going to go to, let's say, F or G. Now I can see right there, I can feel, and if you can't, sometimes just picking up see right there, I can feel my back end getting up. So this is a good indicator. If I go down and let's stop really hard, you see what I'm teetering on that. This is a good way to know if you have a big area where you can test the weights of it. I know if this is going at G, I'm tipping right now. I know at this angle, D, so I could back into my number about how much that item weighs. I'm gonna bring that back in. But this is also why it's really important to go really slow and easy with this. Okay. And again, I'm still in 4-wheel steer. I'll do a nice tight turn. Now, depending on the material you are carrying, you just want to be cautious on the speed you're going. So you can see, I'm just going to do a 360 here for training purposes. You'll see how much tighter the turn is when we're in 360 steering. And even this, if I was going to go any distance, I'd probably even be a little bit lower, and I'd have those curled up a little bit more. And then this is where, put it in neutral, gently set it down. And if you operate a wheel loader or skid a lot, you have to really get used to that, not curling the forks. You want to do that habit, and just because that's secondhand. It takes some getting used to. And then come out of it gently, and there we go. Put it in neutral, and always set your forks flat on the ground. That way they're not a tripping hazard or anything if someone's walking around the site. Neutral, parking brake, and then we can shut it off. Okay, that's how to load and carry with a telehandler. Please comment below if you guys run these things daily. I'd love to hear any tips or tricks from you. Big shout out and thank you to Doug Speedling Construction here in Hastings, Minnesota for letting us use their telehandler. We'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.